In this lecture, we're going to talk about property binding in QML. This is actually easier to show than talk about, so I'm going to go to Qt Creator, create a project, and show you this concept. Okay, so here we are in Qt Creator. I'm going to create a new project. It's going to be a Qt Quick application, as we've been doing before. We're going to call it property binding demo and store it in the usual location. Hit next. Choose the latest version of Qt that we have installed. Choose our kit. And we have our project here. We want to change this title to property binding demo. We are going to put in a rectangle. Its ID is going to be red rect ID. It's going to have a width of 50 and a height that depends on the width. So we're going to say width multiplied by 1.5. This will do. We want to give it a color of red. This is what property binding really is. It is to define one property to depend on another property. In this case, the height of this rectangle depends on its width. I know this looks like a simple assignment of a property, but in QML, this is a contract between the width and the height of this rectangle. Whenever the width is going to change, the height is going to change accordingly, according to this expression here. And this is what we call property binding. The height is bound to the width with this expression here. To show this off, I'm going to add a few other components. I'm going to add another rectangle. You might have guessed that the color of this rectangle is going to be blue. It's going to have a width of 100, a height of 100, and inside we're going to put a mouse area. And when this thing is clicked, we're going to do something. We want to add 10 to the current width of the red rectangle. The way you do that, you say red rect ID width equals red rect ID width plus 10. We also want to make this mouse area fill this rectangle here. So we're going to come on top here and say anchors fill parent. And we want this rectangle here to be to the bottom of the window. The way we do that, we're going to anchor it to the bottom. We want the bottom line of it to be aligned with the bottom line of the window. We're going to say anchors bottom parent bottom. Let's run the application and see what we get. We have a red rectangle which is 50 in width and 75 in height, and we have another rectangle down which is blue, and when you click on this blue rectangle, the width of the red rectangle increases. So we should expect to click and see this thing increasing in width and height, and this is happening. This is what we want. This is property binding in action. Notice that we didn't do anything to have this updating happening when the width changes. This is done automatically by QML, and this is what is called property binding. You bind two properties together and you define an expression that is going to be used to bind them together. But there is a problem. When you try to change this binding, it is going to break. Let's add another rectangle. We're going to call it green rectangle. ID. The color is going to be green. The width and height and anchor properties are going to be exactly the same, but its left side is going to be anchored to the right side of the blue rectangle. So we're going to say blue rect right. And inside we're going to put a mouse area. So we're going to just copy this and modify its onClicked method to have a different effect. So we're going to say redirect height and change this to a static value. Let's change this to 100, for example. Run the application and show you what I mean. So if we click on the blue rectangle, things are normal. The width is changing and the height is changing. If you click on the green rectangle, the height is going to be reset to 100. Notice that the width doesn't change. But what is even worse is that if you click on the blue rectangle, you see that only the width is changing and the height is not changing with it. That is because we broke the contract by setting the height to a static value. Okay, so we set the height to 100 and broke the contract that was binding the height to the width here. That's why when you click on the blue rectangle, only the width is changing. You might think that you can fix this by, for example, copying this thing here and changing this to an expression. This should fix things, right? Let's make this 2 so that when we click on the green rectangle, the height becomes 2 times the width. Let's run the application and see if this works actually. We click on the blue rectangle, things are normal. We click on the green rectangle, you see that things change a little bit. But if you click on the blue rectangle, things are not working as we expect. We are still seeing that the width is changing, but the height is not changing with the width, which means that the expression here is really not working. So what is really happening when you assign a property like this, when it has been assigned before and bound to another property, the binding still breaks. It is actually taking the result of this expression and assigning it as a static value to the height here. And this is no different than what we did by assigning a static value like this. If you want your expression like this to take effect when you click on this green button, you need to do a little bit more work. So what we are going to do is copy this thing because we are going to use it and say Qt binding. And inside we need to pass in a function that is going to return our expression. So what we're going to say, function. We give it a parameter list and we give it a body like this. I like to separate things on different lines so it is easier to read, and return redirect ID with and multiply this by 2. We are using this ID here because we are trying to access this rectangle from another element, which is this rectangle here. Let's run the application, see if our logic works, and then I'm going to try and explain it again. You click on the blue rectangle, you see the width changing and the height changing. Click on the green rectangle and click on the blue rectangle again. You see that what things are updating now. So how is this working? This is working because we are wrapping our logic into this Qt binding thing. What it's really doing, it is notifying the Qt system that we want this binding here to replace the binding that we had here. If you don't wrap your code into this Qt binding thing, it's going to be like you are assigning a static value and it's not going to update as you want. I hope this really makes it clear how you work with property bindings, and you saw the need to use this Qt binding when you need to update your binding that you had defined before in your Qt application. In the next lecture, we are going to talk about the Qt global object, which we have touched on right now by calling Qt binding. This is the Qt global object, and we are going to tackle it in the next lecture. I'll see you there.